I want to talk about a story that came out of Georgia that is just insane to me. So we're going to go ahead and start with that story. And if you guys are looking at the screen, you should see a couple of knuckleheads that just popped up and a house that appears to be like blown out. So I'm going to go ahead and just share this story with you guys. Two Georgia men are indicted on charges of setting off a bomb at a woman's home and plotting to release a python to eat her daughter. You can't make this stuff up. This is so crazy. And shout out to my sister-in-law Laquita, who was one of the first ones I saw sharing this story, and later on it started making like NBC News and other rounds. But basically, it says the men allegedly used the internet to find the victim's home and plotted to mail dog feces to the resident, shoot arrows at her front door, and eventually release a snake inside. And if that isn't the craziest backwood hillbilly thing that you have ever heard of, that's insane. But only in Georgia. We have some of the craziest things that happen out here. So basically, two Georgia men are federally indicted in connection with a sinister plot. They alleged last year that hatched plans to release a python to devour the daughter of one of their exes. So I know there are people who hate their ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, or wives, or whatever the case may be, but this is new level crazy. You're actually going to put your hands, I don't care if you even get gloves, to mail dog feces and shoot arrows at a woman's door and then try to stick a python on her child. I don't know how that was going to work, but nonetheless, this is one of the most insanely idiotic things probably I've heard in some time. So Stephen Gosler, 37, and Caleb Kinsey, 34, of Richmond Hill, Georgia, were arrested February 2023 on charges of setting off a homemade bomb at the home of a woman who one of them had a previous relationship with. On Thursday, they were indicted on multiple federal charges related to the bombing and their alleged plot, which included mailing dog feces to the ex-homes, releasing a snake in her residence, and scalping her. So these crazy jokers was going to try to cut her head off or scalp her on top of all this. I mean, does the insanity ever stop people? It says they plotted to acquire and release a large python into the victim's home to eat the victim's daughter. So I guess the little girl was just going to just be laying there. I mean, I don't know, but this kind of story right here is just mind-boggling that people would actually think they could do these things and get away with these things, especially with all the social media, the technology, cell phone pings, cameras, doorbell cameras. If you look at the house, it's a pretty nice sized home. More than likely that whole neighborhood had an HOA and people watching. So I don't know how these guys thought they were going to get away with this, but it was one of the dumbest things that I've read or heard in a while. It said the men face charges including stalking, conspiracy to use an explosive to commit a felony, use of an explosive to commit another felony offense, possession of an unregistered device. Kinsley was further charged with false statements during the purchase of a firearm and possession of firearms by a convicted felon. The men had the victim under surveillance from December 2022 to January 2023 with the intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate. Wow. It said they conspired to shoot arrows at her front door, mail dog feces or dead rats to the victim's homes, scalp her, and blow up her home. They located her home using internet searches, mapped out a path to her residence, prosecutors said. Kinsley then acquired and built an explosive device using Tannerite, which he purportedly purchased online. The two used it to blow up the victim's home January 13, 2023. Like I said, this is one of the craziest stories that I've heard in a while. And Gosler and Kinsey are basically right now in custody. They're awaiting the further court proceedings. Basically what's going to happen is if convicted with the conspiracy charges and all the things have a statutory penalty of up to 20 years in prison. The charge of using an explosive to commit a felony carries a penalty of an additional 10 years. So these are federal charges, meaning these guys are not going to get parole. Chances are when they get the book thrown at them for this insanity, it is a wrap. And like I said, if you look at the house, it's a pretty nice size home. I don't understand how they're going to get away with it. Bro, move on. I know there are some bitter, hurt exes out there, people who may have dated people and, you just can't let go. sometimes you gotta let go. It's over, okay? It's over. And if you're crazy enough to try to buy a python to kill someone's daughter, Lord, I don't know what that woman's stories probably are gonna be that comes out in court of some of the ignorant drama things that probably spewed from this guy's mouth and out of his mind. But nonetheless, good for them. They're locked up and they're gonna get a lot of time for this crazy crime. I just wanted to share that first opening story with you guys because, like I said, that right there was insane, a crazy plot. Who would have thought? But hey, only in Georgia, right? We have a lot of things that go on in the Peach State, and that right there is one of the craziest. So I had to share that story with you guys. If you can, comment in the comment section. Have you ever dated a crazy ex or had like a crazy relationship that didn't end right? I want to hear about it. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. Go ahead and leave it in the chat. Let's talk about it. I personally remember a situation. I had a crazy couple of situations, actually. For those who know me, I've never been one to like do violence when it comes to relationships. I'm like, yo, if I gotta fight you, I don't want to be with you. That's just my thing. So I remember I had a situation where this crazy person bit me where two of their teeth had actually came out in my arm. And that was probably one of the craziest relationships that I recall. I had another one that was a little cuckoo, they tried to stab me with a pair of scissors before. And, that was just insane. And luckily for me, I've always had witnesses with me, homeboys and people there that could see that, hey, I wasn't on no rah-rah. I didn't do nothing crazy. I just was like, yo, get away from me, you loony chick. But at any rate, if you have a crazy ex story, you want to go ahead and hear about it, go ahead and leave it in the chat. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into our next story.